It was August of 1988. The West Bank and the Gaza Strip, under Israeli occupation since 1967, were in the midst of an unprecedented mass rebellion. It was called the Intifada, the throwing off, and it was now in its 9th month. The PLO leadership was based in Tunisia, over 1,000 miles away, having been driven from Lebanon 6 years earlier by Israeli forces. For the previous 20 years, Yasser Arafat had dominated the Palestinian national movement. Yet even now, his most basic objectives were unclear. To most Israelis, Arafat and the PLO were terrorists, committed to the destruction of Israel and unrestrained by moral norms. Their ideology was clearly stated in their covenant. Israel had no right to exist. They even denied that there was a Jewish people, or that today's Jews had a historical connection to the land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Their aspirations notwithstanding, the Palestinians had long been on the losing end. For decades prior to the establishment of Israel, the Palestinians had feared, opposed, and then fought against the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine. In 1947, they lost that struggle on the international diplomatic level when the United Nations General Assembly called for the division of Palestine into 2 states, one Arab and one Jewish. And in 1948, despite assistance from 5 Arab states following the Israeli Declaration of Independence, they lost their struggle in a full military conflict. Not only did they fail to prevent the Jewish state from coming into being, they failed to prevent it from expanding. When the fighting came to a halt in 1949, Israel controlled not only all of the land designated for the Jewish state in the UN Partition Resolution, but also much of the land that the United Nations had intended for the Palestinian state. Further, most of the Palestinian population from the areas under Israeli control, having fled or been driven from their homes, were now living as refugees in neighboring Arab countries, prevented from returning by Israeli forces. Following this failure in 1948 to prevent the establishment of the Jewish state, the Palestinians did not give up. Seamlessly, their goal shifted from preventing the Jewish state to destroying it. If only the full weight of the Arab states could be brought to bear, this did not seem an unrealistic objective. This appraisal of Israeli vulnerability was widespread until the 1967 war. It was shared by many Israelis as well, and in June of 1967, when Israel launched preemptive strikes against Egypt and Syria, among the Israeli public, most felt they were fighting for their existence. In the Arab world, such was the disbelief in Israeli military capabilities that the initial war reports in the Arab media maintained it was the United States, not Israel, that had destroyed the Egyptian and Syrian air forces in the opening hours of a sweeping conflict that lasted all of 6 days. When the 1967 war began, Israel tried to convince the Jordanians, who controlled the West Bank and East Jerusalem, to stay neutral, but Jordan joined the Arab side. When the fighting ceased, Israeli forces had extended their control to all of mandatory Palestine, all of the area that was to have been divided into 2 states, one Arab and one Jewish. Further, it now occupied parts of Syria and vast swaths of Egypt, all the way to the Suez Canal. Add to this history of Palestinian and Arab military and diplomatic defeats the solidarity between the United States and Israel that emerged after 1967, the development of Israeli nuclear weapons, and Anwar Sadat's diplomacy, which resulted in a stable peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, Israel's most powerful neighbor, and it was clear to all who could see. The Palestinians had lost again, and again, and yet again. The question they faced was, what to do about it? The Intifada of 1988, the political mobilization of the Palestinian population that had lived under Israeli occupation since 1967, gave the Palestinian people an unprecedented degree of agency. While none should pretend that they controlled their own fate, yet unlike at any previous point in their history, they had achieved the power to significantly shape the course of events. The Palestinian people became increasingly aware of this in the early months of 1988, as world attention focused on their revolt. Months went on. They had gained much support worldwide. But their leadership, the PLO in Tunis, which had not planned the Intifada, had yet to find a way to capitalize on the uprising.